Hi, I'm Mario Guerra, the two-time former mayor of the great city of Downey. And thanks for watching, thanks for listening, a special edition of Talking California with Mayor Mario. With everything that's going on in our country, I thought it'd be timely for us to have a discussion and change the narrative of what's been going on lately. We had an episode done last week about talking about President Biden, whether he should stay in the race and all the pressures going on, and it didn't seem appropriate to publish it. What happened Saturday, that fateful Saturday afternoon a few days ago, kind of changed the world, and it changed so many different things for all of us. We avoided disaster as a country in so many ways, literally by an inch. Regardless of what we think of politics, I agree that most leaders on both sides of the aisle have come out and condemned the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. We can't have this in this country. We become a third world country when those things are allowed to happen. And I'm glad to see the tone has come down. The rhetoric has come down, at least for the most part. It was interesting to see some in the media, they couldn't quite comprehend. So for a first day, and even on that Sunday's newspaper headline, something about the president falls or he was taken down or this and that, they couldn't say the word assassination attempt. So it doesn't matter who's president or who's former president. These are sacred institutions and sacred people to us in the standpoint that we need to protect them and their families. So this brings me back several years ago when President Obama was in office. And I remember my wife and I, we had rented a beautiful condo in Miami Beach on vacation. And she was in one room and she let out a scream that Obama had been killed. And I'm like, what? And I come running out and I can feel the tearing up in my face, and I can feel my body going limp because I'm thinking President Obama had been shot. We're there, and we turn on the TV, and we realize that Osama bin Laden, not President Obama, had been shot. And it was a relief. But I remember thinking the way I felt, and I truly felt, whether somebody voted for someone or not, the institution of the President of the United States, what horrific scene that would have been if President Obama had been shot. I felt that same way here, and I'm sure many did too on Saturday, that faithful moment when all those things that are happened. So I'm glad that President Biden came out right away and said something about it. I'm glad that in his interview on NBC a couple of days later that he did apologize for using the bullseye target, that President Trump now, we meaning the Democrats, and he was speaking to them, we need to put a bullseye on President Trump. Bad choice of words. I think the President Trump has already toned it down. I think when you saw him at the convention, when he came out, he looked a lot different, somber, if you will, almost emotional when everybody's yelling, fight, fight, fight. He's got his ear bandaged up, but there's a lot of things that are happening there, and it felt like a different Donald Trump. When you hear the speakers, some of his opponents, Governor DeSantis, Nikki Haley, you have Rassam Warsame, you have Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio. When they come out and they're given their endorsement of President Trump, I think it makes a difference. I think it is a unifying position right now in our country, and I think it really makes him a strong team. So the other day he picked J.D. Vance, senator from the great state of Ohio. So a lot of people think, well, that'll give him Ohio. Well, he was going to win the state of Ohio anyways. But people are taking pot shots at him. Yes, he was very anti-Trump in 2016. His reasoning, just like some of his other opponents now, he saw what President Trump did to the country. And of course, he got to know him and got to change things. And he changed his position, like many of them that are running, that were running against him this year. It's interesting to me because I understand that. President Trump is also an acquired taste. There's so many things that he does that are controversial, and you wish he'd say certain things and do it in a different way. But it's been successful for him. Some of his policies have worked really well for our country, and I think that the one thing I can tell you, I've met him several times privately, and he's a very nice man in close proximity, and I can see him working the room and so forth, and with nothing to gain from it. And he's a very nice man. I was with him several months ago in the green room here locally, and I saw the Secret Service, their reactions, how they were cleaning up the place, if you will, and sweeping it. And they were there several days before, the caution they took. The one lead Secret Service that if you see in that iconic photos just to President Trump's left, he was with him. He was there now in Milwaukee. So it's kind of interesting when you see some of the behind the scenes things that happen. But anyways, I found President Trump to be a very nice man when you get rid of all the rhetoric or the political staging. And I know, I'll take criticism for that. I don't like a lot of the things the way he does it. That same day in that speech, about 60% of things were accurate, and I disagreed with about 40% of it. But again, the one thing that came out the last couple of days too that we forget, he's a father, he's a grandfather, he's a husband. And just the loss of life, especially when we heard about the fireman that got killed protecting his daughters and his family. This is a terrible, terrible moment in our country's history. But I think it can unify us. I think politically, people saying, well, it's going to make him president for sure now. I think it's a little premature to say that. I think at the moment he does have the sympathy, the empathy, but I think it's what he does with it. I think his speech at the RNC, he said he threw away his rhetoric on all the putting President Biden down, and he's changing his tone. I think that there's people that are undecided or people outside his base that are looking at that and going to see, is that something that I can live with for the next 4 years? Is that a leadership quality? I think there's a lot of what ifs right now. So I do think that depending on his tone and rhetoric, he could solidify his presidency. So he picks J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has only been a senator since 2022. But people that don't like his policies are already criticizing him. But let me tell you about an American story. Whether you like his policies or not, this is what America was founded at. 39 years old, okay? Grew up poor. Grew up with an addict mom and a alcoholic father. His parents couldn't take care of him. Was raised by his grandmother, which according to him, he says, she cussed as much as a sailor, or my Marine buddies would have been embarrassed by her cussing. But she had love, and she had dedication to her family, and she had a passion for our country. So she raised him right. He goes into the Marines. He goes off to Afghanistan. He comes serving our country honorably. Comes back, goes to Ohio State University, gets his degree. Goes to Yale Law School, becomes a lawyer. Starts a venture capitalist company on there. And yes, he made money on that way. Good for him. He then meets his sweetheart, another lawyer at Yale Law School. And they have 3 kids. Becomes a U.S. Senator a couple of years ago, and now he's going to be a heartbeat away, literally, from becoming the President of the United States. Is probably the youngest vice president we've ever had. So I'm sorry. That's an American story. That is a success story. That's what we all strive to do. I'll tell you the story. My dad, when we came here, I'm an immigrant. I came as a refugee. I'm proud to say I was the first refugee mayor in the great city of Downey. But when we came here, and I was a little boy, we came on the 3rd Freedom Flight. My dad did what all immigrants do. My dad was a doctor. He was a surgeon. And it was kind of called the brain drain when Castro left most of the doctors and lawyers and judges out of the country there on the freedom flights. So my dad comes here, and so what does he do? He does what every other immigrant has ever done. He gets a job, and he got a job there at working at California Hospital as a janitor because he had to learn English and he had to pass his medical exams. And I always remember growing up, he had books all over my mom and dad's bedrooms. He was always laying there and in a T-shirt, just reading, trying to sound out words and say them out loud to himself. And I didn't realize at the time, I was more, I miss my dad. I wish we could play more. But I didn't realize it then how hard he was working. So my dad becomes a janitor. Years later, after he passed all his medical exams and so forth, he was working at that same hospital where he had been a janitor before. So that's an American success story. J.D. Vance, however you look at politics on some of his positions, is an American story. He grew up poor, determination, served our country, goes to college, makes good, finds his sweetheart, has 3 kids, living in Ohio, in the Midwestern area of our country. So yes, will he help the ticket? Yes. I think a lot of people have making the assumption that he's carrying on the MAGA brand, if you will. I'm not sure what that is. It seems to be conservative, and that's something we need to talk about as a country. The first day of the convention, it's all about make America wealthy again. The second day yesterday was about making America safer again. And then obviously the left and some of the pundits, crime is down. And the key question is, do you feel safer where you're at? And the answer is no, I don't feel safer, especially out here in California. You can give me whatever statistics you want, but today my editor and cameraman right now, Brandon, his car was broken into last night. And part of this equipment for our show was stolen from the trunk of his car. So you can tell me crime is down, nothing's going to happen to those criminals. And do you feel safer? And to me, the answer is no. I think that's what Americans will end up voting for. So the next thing, today will be Senator Vance will be voting on that. Will be speaking tonight at the convention. It's about making America strong again. And tomorrow, of course, the long-awaited speech by President Trump. I think everybody's going to be looking to see his vitality, his tone. Here's a man that literally less than 72 hours ago was facing death. And I think we're going to have to be waiting for the Secret Service to answer certain things. I think we'll find out later. But right now, I think our country is at a state of shock still. I think we're processing it. I think the Democrats have done a good job, at least, to try to tone it down in the last several days. I think the Republicans have done a decent job of taking some leadership and also calming it down. But we'll see what happens in the next couple of months. I do know that we do need leadership from both sides of the aisle. I will tell you that we need somebody to step up and say, all these things aren't acceptable. Most good people will do that. I would do the same thing if this was President Biden that had been shot at, or President Obama, or anybody else on there. We can't have this. So this is a little recap of what's going on these days in Talking California. I'm also a little bit more somber because I was scared, just like everybody else in our country, that somebody can get that close to a former president. And, by the grace of God. Last night, Senator Tim Scott said it best, I think, when he says, he gets down and he got up and he roared like a lion. And I think that'll be a little catchy phrase, but my goodness, if you can't admire him for having the wherewithal to stick up his arm to let everybody there know that he was okay, because so many people hadn't left. Instead of running away, people stayed to see how he was. And before you've all heard the tapes, hold on, after he wanted to get his shoes, but he held up and then he yells, fight, fight, fight. there's a certain machismo there, but there's also some goodness in letting people calm down about it. Donald Trump Jr. Saw him yesterday, and he said he was on a boat with his daughters and their friends, and he got the first initial one that his dad had been shot. For 90 minutes trying to get back, he couldn't get any other news. Tried to make all the calls, the receptions were bad, all these other things. So for 90 minutes, he didn't know if his dad was alive or dead. So think of that. Again, we go back to, we may not like certain people's policies, but you know what? That's a son. That's a father. That's a family member. You know, Melania put it out about what their son and her were going through or what could go through. So, all right, enough preaching on this. As a country, we're coming together. Let's go forth on this election. You know, it looks like it's going to be President Biden, although more and more people are coming out from the Democratic Party. I think that politically, I think this changed things a little bit. I think politically, I think there is a boost. I don't think it's automatic. I don't know how much it raises, but I think what happens in the next couple of days will determine some undecided. I think President Trump, as he approaches the next 60 days, will also be a deciding tale in some of the swing states. California, he's not going to win California, but here in California, we have enough other issues. You know, we have Governor Newsom signing that family law bill the other day. We have, 10 ballot propositions I talked to. But the top standard bearer will be President Trump on the ballot. So we'll see how many people are motivated to go out for Biden. The House goes through California. We won the House several years ago by picking up 5 new seats in California. So somebody says, we don't have an elected Republican statewide. But you know what, though? It comes through California. And then 2 years ago, in the re-election, we held on to those seats. So watch out. I think that could be a big, big factor in our state. Okay, so I welcome your thoughts. I welcome your comments. My cell number is 562-706-4114, 562-706-4114. I know we're still in shock, but let's come together as a community. Let's come together as a country. And I welcome your thoughts and your comments. So stay involved, stay healthy, stay safe.